Hey, if you're new to my channel, then consider liking and subscribing. It would really mean a lot to me, and honestly, it'd make my day. If you already did, thank you so much. Oh, and by the way, if you like listening to fan fiction, check out my other channel. The link's in the description. Legend of the Strawhats by the White Wolf. John was just an ordinary sailor, inheriting his father's ship in what should have been a day of celebration with his loving family. But in the blink of an eye, everything changed. Tragedy struck, and John was cast into a world completely foreign to him. Lost and grieving, he soon crosses paths with a boy made of rubber, wild dreams, and a grin too big for the seas. Luffy, who's determined to become the king of the pirates, and to John's dismay, Luffy has already made up his mind. John is joining his crew, whether he likes it or not. And before we start, a massive shout out to the warlords of this channel. Case Clark, Lee5_SCXR, Tristan Ward. You three are the backbone of this community. Your support means the world. Seriously, thank you for standing with me. If you want to join the ranks of these legends, hit that join button and become a channel member today. Let's grow this thing together. Much love, and as always, adios.
John's POV Luffy, for all intents and purposes, was more akin to a kid than a mature adult. By this I meant that he leaned towards more childish pursuits. I expected him to go to parks, circuses, amusement parks, if they were a thing, not bars or execution stands. Yet, that was precisely how our day was going to go. Waiting for me at the door was my crew, Luffy smiling wide at the entrance to the tavern, in. Sanji, to my pleasant and proud surprise, personally apologized to the poor owner. He promised her the world, of course, the overdramatic putz that he was, but he made clear his apology. He was a good kid. Zoro, ever stoic, was simply waiting away, a new sword at his hip. There was a strange sense of unease I had from it. As if the sword was somehow evil. I could sense that it was attached to Zoro in a more positive fashion than I expected, but still, it was odd. Sorry for the delay, Captain, I smiled. You have some sort of bar to show us? Luffy grinned, nodding along. Yay, Gold Roger drank there right at the beginning. Thought it would be cool to check everything out together. Going at it solo is fine and all, but it's always more fun with everyone. The jubilant energy was infectious, making me smile as I followed him along. Though, now that we were a bigger group, we were drawing attention. Nothing negative, for as I could feel, but certainly eye-catching. I looked at Nami and thankfully she was thinking the same. We nodded at each other. We wouldn't be able to stay here for much longer. From what I could gather, both from the town and Nami herself, there was a marine here who was notorious for destroying more pirates at the beginning of the Grand Line than any other entrance. Large groups like us must attract at least some attention. After all, a large group would sometimes indicate a crew. That Logia town was famous for attracting pirates, regardless of the marine presence. Just in case, I decided to review what we've done thus far. I know that we acquired the basics and other materials while shopping with Nami. Food, basic supplies, and even specifics such alcohol and training gear. I even decided to buy some firearms for myself and Usopp. I was never any good at using a gun, but it didn't hurt to have it on you. They were revolvers, like something out of a western. It was actually kind of strange, considering the almost musket-like rifles I've seen the Marines using. They were expensive, which implied a sort of rarity to them. Ammunition was limited too. I could barely afford 20 bullets with what I had left over that I was willing to spend. Honestly, I was still wondering if perhaps a more readily made rifle would have been a smarter choice, but I still felt that the portability of a handgun was a greater asset. I didn't have it on me, of course. I had no idea what sort of laws went into firearms. Ah, right. I turned to Usopp and Kaya, the two off in their little world. Though they were quick to turn to me. How were the doctors, The smile they gave me reassured me all was well, for the most part. Said she was making a full recovery, though, they did say that Kaya needed to avoid certain foods for now. Kaya giggled. All sorts of strange names I've never heard. We spent the day trying to find out what they were. Usopp grinned, his nose seemingly growing longer. I've heard of every food there ever was. Ask me, the great all-knowing Usopp, for I know all. Sanji chuckled a bit. Is that right, long nose, Lady Kaya, if you'd please? I rolled my eyes as Sanji began to riff into Usopp. It didn't seem to be targeted, more akin to light teasing if anything. It was funny watching Usopp overreact though. It wouldn't surprise me if he was doing it on purpose. The piece was calming, beautiful even. Walking down the street with friends was more of a joyful experience than I gave it credit for. The old saying, "You don't know what you have until you lost it," was more appropriate now than ever before in my life. I felt my skull itch at the reminder, but I could at least think about it without spiraling down. A criss and a cross, and I found myself at what had to be the most stereotypical hole-in-the-wall bar I've ever seen in my life. It was run down, beaten, and sure enough an old fart that looked like he had one foot in the grave manning the bar. Would he be as crotchety as they come? What do you kids want? Perhaps not. I hated the fact that I still didn't know any of the brands that were on the shelf. At this point I'd take anything that was like something back home. The taste was irrelevant, just anything. The wine was too sweet, the beer more like ale, and the ale tasted more like a sugary treat. The bitterness of home. I didn't care if I had to brew it myself at this point. I'd find it. The drink that Smoker had was sharp, yes, but there was still an undertone of sweetness to it. It was more a bourbon than what I was after. The taste of home, that same shitty-ass whiskey we always drank at the table. Got any whiskey? I asked, already knowing the unlikelihood. Sure do. Wait, what? Whiskey, I repeated. Yes? Not some sweet, sugary, fake whiskey, but actual whiskey? The man blinked. The small elder suddenly gained a small smile. He reached down, pulling out a bottle. It was large, easily half the size of the old man and would fit comfortably in John's larger palm. It had a greenish hue to the crystal, and with a pop the older man poured a glass, a feat that was rather off-putting to see considering the older man's size. Haven't had someone ask me that for a long time. So, I noticed the name, smiled Nami, taking a seat. What about it? Luffy merely smiled, ignoring the man's grumble. His excessive smile broke through whatever barriers there were, because it clearly made the old man uncomfortable. Did Gold Roger really sit here? Did he really drink here? The man smirked. Ah, you're pirates. He raised his hand, ignoring the way I retreated from the drink as I sat. Ah, relax. Those damn Marines have been sending my business into the toilet with all their pirate hunting. Honestly, a man's gotta make a living here, damn it. So no, so long as you're like Roger and not those freaks on the seas nowadays, you're welcome here, youngins. The man stood on his stool, gesturing to himself. The small grin filled with a confidence gained only through age. The name is Raoul. So, you're here about gold, Roger? It's Gold Roger, muttered Luffy. Raoul flicked the rubber boy in the head. He didn't even so much as blink at the sight of his fingers slightly bouncing off Luffy's skull. It's Gold. Roger, you brat. I actually knew the man, so you can cram it. The room went silent as Luffy's eyes grew wide. You knew Roger. He laughed as old men do, a joy that only came from interacting with the young echoing through his bar. He gestured for the rest to sit, pouring water for everyone else. The glasses were pristine, of a quality that I had only seen in more upper-town establishments. I took a sip and stilled. It wasn't the same, no, but the fact remained that this was the closest to my whiskey I had ever gotten. The closest to a taste familiar to home. He slowly sipped the rest, lamenting in the memories of those that were gone. No, they were away. This is good, I muttered, staring at the liquid in the glass. Got more hair on your balls than I figured, kid. I almost snorted the whiskey out of my nose from laughing so hard. Stop messing around, grinned Luffy, tell me more about Roger. Don't know too much, said Raoul, just about the same as a bartender would know a customer. He stopped by more than a few times when he was supplying here. Back then there wasn't some overwhelming force of Marines barring you, attacking you, arresting you, you get the gist. He smiled, taking my empty glass and beginning to clean it. I gestured to the bottle, wanting to inspect it. Sure enough, there was no name. Only an emblem on the bottle. It was an eerily familiar one. It was the shape of a deer head. Antlers A of the Glenfiddich brand in the similarity, though far more cartoony than I would expect for a brand of alcohol. I tried to find for information on the labels as the others kept talking. We heard everything about Roger's first steps here. about how he presented himself, of the dangers the Grand Line had back then, and more importantly, the sense of adventure. For me, it was interesting to learn that pirates overall had a more neutral attitude than I expected. Most didn't trust pirates outright, mainly because they were strangers. But from the way Raoul spoke, there were areas that were under the protection of certain pirate crews. Some areas even under their law completely. Take the warlord Crocodile. Now that is a man similar to Roger. He looks out for the people in Alabasta. You better be looking to be a real pirate, kid. I don't want some violent hoser in my bar. Luffy looked confused, but a quick whisper from Nami cleared it up. Don't worry, old man. I'm not like those fakes. A real pirate, a true pirate, is all about freedom. He grinned, standing on the stool, the wood creaking on the weight. I expected the man to start telling Luffy to sit, but instead he stared up at our captain, as if trapped in a memory. I'm going to be the freest man in the world, laughed Luffy. I'm going to be king of the pirates. Of all the responses I expected, it was not laughing, it was not condescending, no, it was a laugh filled with joy, like a present you never expected was coming. You're just like him. Raoul went under the bar, getting an extremely dusty old bottle. It was half filled with a purplish hue, the clear crystal giving way to color. Here, kid, I only take a shot of this with real pirates. He poured 2 shot glasses, handing one to Luffy and another to himself. I smiled. I had seen Luffy chug beer like no one's business, but this was the first shot I'd see the kid take. He downed it without a worry, licking his lips, only for them to suck right in at what I assume was a sour flavor. Grrrk. Raoul was no better, his face the picture of sheer sourness. The two struggled and gasped at nearly the same time. I could smell the alcohol now, and it was by far the sourest thing I've ever smelled in my life. Considering I'm technically living my second life, that was saying something. Gah! That hit the spot. Roger's favorite drink. One of the few bottles left after the Marines shut the distillery down. Shame too, made this bar a lot of money back then. They spent the next little bit talking, questions about Roger, pirates, and even the world. The others would chime in, Usopp especially with his grandiose lies. Honestly, they were more entertaining than I thought they would be. But, like all things, it had to end. But, it ended with a warning rather than a goodbye. As we settled up, a tearful Nami giving the man cash and tip. He gave as a grave tone with a worried expression. How long have you youngsters been here? About a day, muttered Usopp. Raoul grimaced, eyeing the door carefully. He leaned forward. Listen. Get out of this island as fast as you can. The Marines investigate every ship and newcomer with a fine-tooth comb. I take it you don't have bounties yet? The crew shook their head. Good. Probably the only reason you haven't been hunted down yet. Trust me on this, kids, don't waste time and just get out of here. We have everything we need anyways, muttered Zoro, grasping at this newest blade, no sense in wasting time. Sanji said nothing, mindfully twirling a cigarette in his hands. He was unlit, but I could recognize the nicotine itch. It would have to wait. Aw man, groaned Luffy. I at least wanted to see the execution stand. Let's go. Maybe if we hurry we can see it on our way out. Nami gave me a look, but a glance at Luffy and I knew it was pointless. I could only shrug in response. Moving through the town now was a lot more eye-opening when you realized that the people were keeping an eye on you. Most were just curious glances sent our way, but a number of them were just simply staring at us. Not a chance that was good. But still, Luffy just kept going, with Zoro and Sanji hot on his heels. Usopp and Kaya were at least a little concerned, the poor boy doing a horrible job at remaining inconspicuous with his leering around. Poor guy was a step away from a heart attack. Still the sight of the gallows, the place where Roger died, the death place of a legend that shook this world. Did nothing for me. The others were amazed, even Kaya strangely enough, but for me it was just a wooden platform. I titled my head, trying to see what the big deal about it was. I chalked it up to a cultural thing, shrugging. Then my head stung. I still didn't understand what this was, but I've learned to trust it, as random as it seemed. If I focused, the pain was lessened, like a sore muscle becoming stronger as I used it. Was there a means to invoke this at will? I turned, to face the direction I felt compelled to look, and I saw an attractive slim woman. I blinked, especially at the way she glared at me. Her outfit seemed strangely familiar, as unusual as it seemed. A pinkish captain coat, a large fluffy hat, and a large hammer. You, she smirked, making the whole group turn to you. I finally found you. Luffy and I blinked, tilting our heads. Luffy crossed his arms, narrowing his eyes in focus. Eventually he gave up. Who are you? I could see the blood vessel damn near pop on her skull. She growled. A rather husky voice drawled into a deep growl. You've forgotten me. Luffy picked his nose. Yup. She drew the massive club on her back and slammed it into the ground. Damn you Strawhat, after what you've done to me, I'll clobber you Straig. A torrent of white smoke completely covered the woman, the force great enough to almost blow my hat clear off my head. Certainly blew Luffy's away, though quick rubbery grab fixed it. Where she once stood was a man. He was large, smoking 2 cigars at once, and my senses were screaming. Everything about this man told me that he was a danger. The smoke that lingered was now billowing off into the distance. I assumed it had to be a marine base it was going to, considering the giant marine jacket this man was wearing. As he turned, I realized it wasn't the jacket that was wide, but the man. He was well built, a strange weapon on his back that I've never seen before. Now that he was looking at us, I noticed the paper that was in his hands. He looked down reading it, before locking eyes with Luffy. A straw hat. He walked a few steps. A beanie, a red head, a swordsman with 3 swords. I got enough here. He towered over us, his gaze a looming, almost overbearing thing. You'll be coming with me. There are some questions we have about Kokoyashi Village and Arlong Park. Luffy grinned. Nah, I'm good. Aw shit. The man blew some smoke and raised an eyebrow. Just a few questions and you'll be on your way. That before or after our ship is impounded? Smoker's eyes widened and even I looked at Luffy with a shocked look. The confidence he said speaking about it, it made me think of Garp. For all the old man's griping about Luffy's choices, he had always trained Luffy. After I put some common sense in his head, he drilled Garp with question after question. I would know, since I was the one Garp ran to when he wanted to complain about it. Seriously, the man was a giant version of Luffy. Instantly we all started running, with Smoker close behind. Whatever move he did to hit that random woman with, didn't seem to be something he could just do. The smoke, it was obvious that he was a logia, like me. Considering the restrictions, it likely took time for him to make smoke strong enough to carry someone. We kept bypassing some people, but eventually there was enough space for us to really book it. I almost threw up when I felt a torrent of smoke slam into my back. The pain was unexpected as I was launched into a house. The way it coiled around me and was starting to lift me away, made me realize damn G about his skills. John. The smoke tried to wrap around me, like chains, but it did little to me once I froze it. I jerked my arms and was surprised at how brittle the ice was. I ran out of the house, ignoring the way Smoker looked at me in shock. That had to be the guy the first was hearing about, considering he was smoking 2 cigars. We were blitzing through the streets, running around and even over whoever was in our way. Luffy took to the rooftops, laughing like a fool. I tarried behind Nami, Usopp, and Kaya. Sanji and Zoro were already ahead, taking out some of the marines that were hidden in the crowds. You're not getting away. The white smoke blitzed past us. I didn't want my power to be known just yet, but there was a time and a place to avoid using it. Besides, with enough investigating, I'm pretty sure they'll learn soon anyways. But God seemed to be with us, because instead of a giant wall of smoke slamming into us, a massive gust of wind carried Smoker away. One of the weaknesses of just being smoke, I guess. I didn't question it, not bothering to turn back. I was more concerned about the ship than I was about a freak accident. There was a number of men already starting to chain our vessel away. One of the Marines even had the balls to be testing the wheel of the ship with a few men on board starting to impound her away to wherever the Marines were. Imagine my surprise when it wasn't Luffy that raged. No, it wasn't even Zoro or Nami. I almost lost my footing feeling this surge of anger emanating from none other than Usopp. The boy, the carefree boy, had a crazy look in his eye. He had been running, screaming the whole time with Kaya away from Smoker. But now, the lad's balls seemed to drop as a scowl to end all scowls etched its way across his features. Get off the Mary. He whipped out his slingshot and with a skill and speed that astounded me, pelted each man square in the head. While most, including myself, would discount the slingshot, it appeared to be more than enough. Each pellet he fired cracked with a loud sound, sending each unsuspecting marine down for the count. We all clambered into the ship, but Usopp still had this intensity to him. Even Kaya was staring, though for entirely different reasons. It was hilarious watching the girl swoon. Nice work, Usopp. The fucker had the audacity to nod, like he was a stoic hero or something. He narrowed his eyes, inspecting the ship. Nami was already at the helm, with Zoro and Sanji getting her ready. I searched the 3 men that were knocked out, checking if they were even breathing, which they were, and then promptly searched them. Found some money and a few bullets with another long rifle. A few knives too. I just took everything except the clothes on their backs. I looked across the harbor and smiled at the sight. She was there, giving me an anxious smile along with the onlookers. I didn't make a show, only locking eyes with her. The rose I left was still in her hands. "Are we ready, crew?" yelled Luffy, hanging from the masts. "Aye, Captain." The echo seemed to invigorate the people at the harbor, the entirety of them watching with anticipation as we left. Perhaps this was the furthest pirates have gotten with Smoker in town. I wasn't too keen to stay and ask. I didn't see any other harbor when we had docked onto the island the other day, but somehow, sailing past the edge of the island I could see, was a trio of marine ships. They were closing in on us, fast. It was surreal watching the way these ships moved, easily outclassing the Mary in terms of speed. To be fair, they were a great deal smaller than her, lightly equipped as well. Still, there was no telling what their smaller ships held. I rushed to the stern, almost slamming into the railing. I conjured a spear of ice in my hand, desperately praying I could nail the ships that were closing in. The ship lurched to the left, away from the jagged coastline. I was just about to launch King Naruto. Crack, boom. I jumped a bit, turning around. As we had turned, Usopp had already prepared and fired the cannon. The mass of iron screeched through the air like a majestic eagle. I felt entranced, watching the flowing arc ram straight into the mast of the enemy ship, splintering the sails with the anger of a god. I blinked, turning to Usopp. I watched with a slowly raising brow as Usopp commanded Zoro of all people. The swordsman was grinning as he ripped the hatch of the cannon open, shoving the large ammunition with grace and efficiency. "Loaded," he called. Usopp said nothing, shifting the cannon to the right and up, his arms struggling slightly with the exertion. I blinked, and the boy launched a second cannonball, striking true on the mast of the second enemy ship. "Loaded." Zoro's grin remained, as he loaded the last iron ball. With a few quick adjustments, it was launched, and the third marine ship was left motionless, their crews scrambling. I was speechless. Nami was too focused on getting the ship where it needed to go, but poor Kaya was damn near drooling. Hell, even I was awestruck. I know Luffy said the lad could shoot, but damn. I began laughing, jumping down to slap Usopp on the back. "Where the hell did that come from, lad? You were on fire." Usopp turned to me, his face still narrowed in that icy glare. He began to shake slightly. Is it over?" he whimpered slightly. Zoro slumped, a little disappointed. "Oh yes, mighty Usopp, we're in the clear. No thanks to you. The next island of beer is on me, lad." One final slap sent Usopp to his knees, Kaya quickly gushing over him. "You really are a warrior of the seas, Usopp, that was incredible." I could hear his ego swelling as strength returned to him, the praise causing the man to preen. Was it arrogance? Perhaps. But the boy had earned his spotlight far as I was concerned. Even Sanji was shaking his head with a smile. "Anyone else after us?" he asked. Luffy landed with a boingy plomp. He grinned, holding his hat to his head. "Nope. We're in the clear. Well, so far anyway." He slapped his stomach, his signature laugh echoing across the ship. "Man, I'm hungry. Whip us up something, Sanji." The man took out his cigarette and shrugged. "Already on it, Captain. Food will be ready within the hour." Sanji marched to the kitchen. The little pep in his step and the general feeling I got told me he was excited. We weren't exactly stocked on varied food supplies when we left Nami's island. It was a different story now. I didn't know a lot about making food, but I at least knew enough to know what generally went with what. Nami held the wheel, eyes narrowed at the sea ahead. Luffy was beside her now, his feet dangling as he sat on the railing near her. I didn't hear what they were talking about, but I did get the last little bit. How long until the Grand Line? I asked, making my way up there. A few hours and we should be good to get some food in our bellies before we entered the best. The quizzical look she gave me, I felt a pit beginning to grow. We'll be there in less than 20 minutes. Of course we were. I began rushing down to stop Sanji before he could cook. Let us know next time. Nami flipped me off as she growled, one-handing the wheel. We were running from the Marines, when would I? The Grand Line was closer than I thought, and a small part of me was rather nervous. Actually, it was outright terrifying. But amidst that feeling, oh, the idea of seeing even more of this strange world? Well, that got me right giddy. Ah shit, Luffy infected me, didn't he? Is this what he felt all the time? This sense of purpose? This grand feeling of adventure? It was pretty good, not gonna lie. To the Grand Line, here we come, end chapter next time. 1 Strawhats. Laboon and Whiskey Peak Legend of the Strawhats Chapter 10. The smell of the sea was as bright a day as the feeling in his heart. It swelled and broke a smile onto his face. John laughed with the others as they shook Usopp in a victory cheer. Well done, lad. Ha. The look on their faces. Usopp gave a shaky smile and a thumbs up as he chortled along with them. I am the mighty Usopp. GRK. Zoro slapped his back, making the younger and weaker man almost spit his lunch up. He turned, his face enraged as he pointed at the swordsman. That hurt, damn it. The open sea was filled with laughter. To John's shock, even Kaya was up and about in an animated fashion. This world was so confusing to him. How quickly people healed, how fast, how strong, and even how weird they were. The entire ocean was filled with this adventure, and it felt nice. The only one that was not a part of the festivities was Nami herself. The poor girl was narrowed-eyed and white-gripped at the wheel, her arms bulging at the sheer weight of the ship as she constantly spun the steering as needed. Need help, lass? The death glare he got said it all. A navigator may have been, but the girl seemed more at home at the helm than anything. Now that John thought about it, Luffy too was oddly quiet. Luffy, he smiled, eyeing his captain. You're quiet, lad. You alright? Luffy was sitting on the very mast of the Going Merry. His open jacket billowed in the wind as he stared straight ahead. How the misting of the seawater didn't affect the boy was strange, but he strikes a rather serious figure. Luffy turned, a massive grin on his face. His eyes were alight with excitement that had been tempered into a savage focus. We're almost there, John. I can feel it. You said that in 10 minutes ago, yelled Nami. Shut up and let me work. Luffy felt his face shrivel up. I'm just so bored. He jumped down from the mast. Hurry up, Nami. Like I can make this thing, HMPH, go any faster. The poor girl was struggling as the waves beneath them became even more savage. John narrowed his eyes, eyeing the calm waters, not several clicks to their northeast. Nami, the sea is calm over there. Sanji placed a hand on his shoulder, making him turn to their chef. In his hands was a rather strange-looking octopus on a stick. It smelled sweet and tangy, like the oranges Nami were growing. His pensive expression stared into that same sea, as he handed another 4 of these small meals to Luffy. Sanji still wore his apron, his hands covered in a fine film. It looked like a pair of black plastic gloves, though they were not like anything I'd ever seen. You're done cooking? Asked Kaya. Sanji shook his head. No, I've left everything to marinate. If we're heading where I think we are, cooking is just a hazard. These are just snacks for everyone. As everyone ate, Sanji nudged me and pointed to the area I had noticed. That there is the Dead Sea. Apparently, no wind blows through that ocean, leaving any ship stranded. He shrugged, reaching into his pocket for a cigarette. He stopped, the man eyeing Kaya with Usopp. John felt an appreciative smile as Sanji thought better of it. The fellow blonde rubbed his forefinger against his thumb as he kept speaking. Anyway, supposedly the Navy has a way to sail through those waters. There's also the fact that it's riddled with sea kings. Either way, it's not ideal. We only have one option if we want to reach the Grand Line in any reasonable amount of time. Sanji narrowed his eyes from where they came. It may have been years ago, but the cook still felt a tingle in his bones. He remembered what it was like being hunted, and this feeling was exactly like it. Nami had done wonders getting us here. The tides that sped us through the waters, catching the wind, the girl was a whiz that much John would admit. What should have taken days with a comparative ship in his world was done in hours. The Marines are on our tail. If we truly want to lose them, then the Grand Line is the only way, muttered Usopp behind us. It would have sounded more badass if the poor boy wasn't shaking. Kaya was lying against him, her eyes drooping. Too much excitement for her, at least right now. The Marines won't be able to follow us that well, muttered Sanji, though that depends entirely on the outfit that's running their corp, here. Sure enough, in the far distance there was a group of slimmer boats. I scoffed. Of course, this weird world had these kinds of ships. They may have looked entirely ancient by my standard, but the speeds they moved at were insane. Not as fast as a motorized vehicle, true, but far faster than a simple sailboat would imply. You know a lot of dark brow, smirked Zoro. Shut it, Minty. The swordsman lost his smile, and John found one. It was funny watching these two banters. It reminded him of the times he spent with his brother. His mood soured immensely. The smile waned. He looked down at his hands, a memory stirring that just didn't want to come to the surface. Even with the Marines in the distance, the crew was not worried. That was the confidence Nami had inspired in them. Now if only that same confidence wormed its way into John at this moment. John? He turned to face Kaya, the small girl looking at him with concern. It warmed his icy heart, and he patted her head. It's all right, child. Just, he never talked about them. Not even Luffy. He always kept it close and to himself. Yet, it felt like it was time. My brother, said John, I was just reminded of my brother. Luffy stiffened, turning to his friend. He had heard bits and pieces, but always as a kind of passing information. Never something so direct. Nami perked a little bit as well, having heard of him prior. A brother? Muttered Zoro. There's two of you weirdos around? Huh? Smiled John. No, Zoro, there's only one of me, I'm afraid. The bonding is nice and all, but get ready. Nami's arms were bulging with what muscle they had. Her smile slowly growing even if I could feel her nervousness from here. The girl was entirely in her element. I turned, eyes narrowing as he rapidly approached a small mountain. The trepidation on Sanji's face made John smile. He was tapping his foot nervously as he patted his pocket. Is this something spec? IAL? John's eyes widened a bit as he stared at the mountain. His sense of touch, while still viable, was rather dull in comparison before. It was only now that he realized just how fast they were going. For the once small mountain was rapidly becoming gargantuan as they closed in. Reverse Mountain, muttered Sanji, is a gateway to the Grand Line. I don't know much about it, but they say the currents here are monstrous. I blinked. I turned to stare at Nami. How monstrous? Sanji grinned and gave a light shrug. Apparently, most die from traversing it. Of course they do, muttered John. He decided enough was enough. John's point of view, our entrance was rapidly approaching, and rather than depending solely on Nami's skill, I quickly turned into ice. I could feel the way my powers spread across the boat, my sense slowly expanding as I concentrated. The sounds around me dulled as my hands remained outstretched on either side. The idea was to cushion the sides as best I could with several layers of ice. Like some of that medieval armor I heard about. It was a flimsy idea, admittedly. Yet, what occurred next made me appreciate Nami all the more. I could literally feel the way the ship had moved into the exact position it needed to, traverse right into the strange river and narrowly missing the very edges of the walls. I turned my head, feeling the presence of several others. Multiple marine ships were closing in as our slow incline upwards began. It was slow, but I could feel our ship gaining speed rapidly as the currents beneath it became stronger and more ravenous. Nami was undeterred, the girl basically fighting the ocean, the very currents itself. She wasn't just surviving. She was winning. I think Luffy must have really been a god or something, because without some divine intervention, there should have roped a maestro like Nami into our crew. Yet, her skills shone their brightest as the navy beneath us sputtered uselessly at the entrance, all of them avoiding what seemed to them certain death. She had entered beautifully, but that didn't mean we were free of tribulation. No, instead it just got worse. The higher we went, the deeper the incline, and the faster said climb happened. At one point, almost everyone was beginning to slip and fall. I froze the entirety of the deck, trapping everyone in a cascade of ice. It trapped their feet, but I also made sure to keep the ice wrapped around the back of their bodies as well. Wouldn't do for their ankles to snap. I had done the same to Nami, but when she rammed her elbows into the ice, I made sure to keep her body clear. Finally, we reached the zenith. The air was freezing as we stared into the open sky, our ship slowly lurching forward. It was a slow decline, but as the seconds went on, I felt the same trepidation as a roller coaster. "Oh, here we go," I muttered. I was never a fan of them, honestly. I shifted the ice to stand in front of my crewmates. Unlike the climb up, we went full throttle straight down. It took almost all my concentration to spread this dry-like ice to the front of the ship, a vain attempt at some kind of cushion. We did not slam into the ocean as I expected, but rather reached a slow and gradual level out to basic sea level. The ice I had conjured disappeared. I wish it hadn't. My eyes nearly bulged out of my skull, along with the rest of the crew. Before us, leering at us like an angry god, had to be the largest, most fuck you whale I had ever witnessed in my god-forsaken life. No, there was no comparison. The whales I had seen were gnats compared to this unholy monster. The scars at what I assumed must be its cranium deep, gouged and entrenched so thoroughly I shuddered to think about what caused them. Zoro, our most infallible warrior, was openly gawking. His voice caught a few times, before he snapped us all out of our awe. "What are we waiting for? Move." Nami suddenly spun the wheel and by a miracle managed to catch a wind. I kept staring at the creature, my head careening as the ship twisted away. It was almost hopping with how fast he managed to go. Yet, for all my fear of this massive beast, I felt sadness. The more I stared, the deeper that sadness went. Nay, it was like despair so deep I was drowning in it. It wasn't a foreign thing to me. I had felt this depth before. I couldn't look away, not with something so familiar in my heart aching towards this solemn beast. The way it waited, did it know we were here? Its mouth opened wide. "Hey, wait, what's it does?" The bellow that erupted from the whale echoed in my chest, bringing me to my knees. The others fared a little better, gripping their ears to escape the ravenous echo. Our ship shook as it was rocked ever closer back to the reins of the massive creature. Luffy, however, powered through, his eyes narrowing dangerously. I should have known better. "Shut up." We all watched horror movies. Luffy's fist had elongated, straight as an arrow. I surged my eyes forward, yet I knew it was in vain. As Zoro and the others screamed, I instead closed my eyes. I looked at the sun one last time, feeling the minute moments of heat and the grace of the wind. Here lies John, murdered by an idiot. God damn it, Luffy. "Boing, boing," I muttered. I blinked, staring at the way the whale just stared at us. Its massive eye blinked and a light shuffled as it adjusted its weight. The wave was large, but it swirled as further away from the beast than any of our previous efforts did. We all watched as the whale just opened its mouth. A simple action, but one that sent us spiraling down its gullet. Nami attempted for a moment to steer, but decided it was better to come down and begin choking Luffy, with tears down her eyes. "You're absolute idiot," she cried. I stared upwards, sighing. He was going to kill me. Really, he was. My vision went dark for a moment as we tumbled through. My stomach twisted as he was tossed and turned down the rush of water. Yet, when we all opened our eyes, a clear sky was above us. A few clouds were motionless above us, but it was the sky, no doubt. "Wait," I muttered. My thoughts were interrupted as we looked around. I turned, feeling a new presence. We all did, for as we turned around, we all stared at the man that was reading a paper, staring at us. He sat there, with an open-buttoned shirt revealing a pudgy if somewhat muscular build. He had glasses on, a type that was far too small for his frame and face yet sat on the bridge of his nose just fine. The island he was on was small, with a full lighthouse and a home. He was standing, glaring at us. Suddenly his eyes narrowed in their intensity, and he walked slowly. We all gulped, staring at the man as he stared back, the silence deafening. He stopped and without breaking eye contact, sat down. He sat there, lighting a pipe and staring at us. As it hung in his jaw, he opened his newspaper with a flourish. The smoke smelled odd to me as we slowly drifted, eyes locked on each other. He chewed the pipe, swirling it to the other side of his jaw as his eyes followed us. He was relaxing in what was honest to God a plastic pulls-up chair. It wasn't a good quality one, looking like something out of a grocery superstore. His khaki shorts and old sandals fit the beach-going old man vibe he had going on. Though the blank stare he had going on gave him a far more aggressive tone. I blinked. Sanji snapped first. "Will you say something?" he growled. "Who the fuck are you?" the old man muttered. His voice was gravelly with age, tinged with a smoker's lint. "Who the hell are you?" demanded Usopp. "Do you not see the giant monster whale? Why are you just sitting there?" "No, didn't even realize Laboon was there," he snarked dryly. "Of course I did, you monkey." "Who are you calling a monkey?" demanded Usopp. "I'm calling you a monkey, dumbass. Honestly, are all you kid this stupid? You want to fight, old man?" I sighed, turning to Zoro and shaking my head. He of course ignored me. The man's aura dimmed, as a dark expression crossed his face. "If we fight, boy, someone is going to die," it was told with the surety that came with age. "Yay, old man? Who would that be?" said Zoro, drawing his blade slightly. "Well, me, you retard. You got the sword." Zoro fell forward, chopping his hand at the man and yelling at him. "You can't even say that anymore." A one-finger salute was the only response the man gave. Yet, for all his admittance, I could feel it. This man, he was stronger than all of us, despite his raggedy appearance. His eyes suddenly focused on me, narrowing. "TCH, of course you young'un have hockey. Why does everyone we come across know that? What the hell is it?" "Yay, we still don't know what that is," muttered Usopp. "Well, are you going to explain?" Finally, someone who would. "No, damn it." "What do you mean no?" the old man shrugged, putting away his newspaper and grabbing a medic's bag that was beside him. "I don't want to." "I want you to," yelled Usopp. "Everyone keeps talking about it but no one explains anything." The man rubbed his fingers. He kept going, changing his pace a little as he twisted his hands slightly every so often. "What's that?" asked Usopp, his curiosity getting the better of him. "The world's smallest violin. Cry about it." I couldn't help but chuckle a bit. This old man didn't give a rat's ass about anything. He stood, showing the full signs of his age, but there was more to it. I could see the ravages of a hard life. A few scars around his leg, a familiar one to my eye. After all, I had a similar scar on my own leg once upon a time. A scar that remained when a piece of rope had broken and snapped me across the leg. I was lucky at the time that the tension wasn't as bad as it could have been. The way this man leaned forward, his muscular arms weakened back. He had suffered a hard life, me. "Take a portrait if you want to keep looking at me, pretty boy." I narrowed my eyes. "Where are we?" I asked. "You come near my abode and demand a lot of things for a bunch of youngsters with no manners." The boat that was moored to his island suddenly sputtered with a loud crack, sinking slowly. He stared at it, his eyes in almost disbelief at the impossibly bad luck. "Karma's a bitch, isn't it, old man?" snarked Nami. "Maybe next time don't go firing your mouth off." "Oh, you're just a spitfire, aren't you, girl?" asked the man. "Is that a problem?" she asked darkly. "Not for me," he snarked. "I'm more worried about your boys. They know who their captain is, right?" He, grinned Luffy. "Nami is the best at what she does, but she's our navigator." "She's your navigator," he muttered. "I thought with the way she had you all by the balls she was the captain?" We all fell silent as Nami chuckled. "You poor bastards," he sighed. "Hey, orange brat, I need your ship for a moment." "Hell no, I'm not taking the damn thing," he muttered. "Just want to borrow your services to get out of Laboon." The man muttered something about getting a shipwright again. "What do we get out of it? Nothing's for free." She said it with the swagger of a common thief. Yet, I could feel the thrum of her weakness. Like a swaying note dancing on the strings, she was grasping at straws to help. If the man offered a corn chip, she'd likely take the deal. "Fair enough," muttered the old man. He rubbed his chin, the scratchy sound of a 5 o'clock shadow was audible even from here. "Tell you what, girl. You let me on that ship of yours and I'll give you a log pose." "A what?" she asked. He blinked. "Oh, great, you know nothing about the Grand Line." He sighed, rubbing his head. "No one does their research. Whatever, get to the gate so we can head out Laboon and I'll give you a log pose." It was then that his words hit us, but it was Kaya that voiced it. "We, in the whale?" she whispered. The old man had the audacity to stare at us like we were idiots. "Well yes," he stated, "you're in Laboon's stomach. Honestly, you think you'll survive on the Grand Line with that?" "No," yelled Usopp. "You do not get to act like that is normal. Stop it." The man blinked. "Calm down, monkey. Call me monkey one more time and I swear I'll put a bullet in you." The old man's eyes narrowed, a frightening expression forming on his face. Usopp dwindled into a little puddle, his legs giving out on him in terror. "Don't. Someone will die." We all got ready as the man stood, putting his newspaper away. Why yay? Who would that be?" "Well, me retard. You have the gun." "The same bit," I yelled with Sanji. He blinked, staring at us. "Huh. 2 North Sea boys in your crew. An interesting bunch you all got." "North Sea?" I muttered. "Well duh," muttered the old man. Was that his damn catchphrase or something? The man took a more quizzical look at us, rubbing his chin. "Blondes like you two aren't natural to our region. Then again, the world has certainly become a wider place than when I was a part of it, Well, anyways the names are Crocus." He jumped onto the boat. It was an odd sight to me. The man looked as if he was in his 70s. He shouldn't have been able to hop, much less jump several meters onto our ship. "Now hop did. I got some other visitors to deal with," he growled. I felt it for a moment, the way his self expanded. There was no other way for me to describe it. It was like his sight or mind expanded beyond the confines of his body. I could feel how sharp his intent was in comparison to my own. He was like a scalpel, direct and precise. My own was more like a blanket, hoping to find whatever was out there. It was a horrid comparison, I knew that much, yet, that was how it felt. The old man stared at me, his eyes softening. "Ah, so you're the one. I thought it was odd. I felt hockey from the crew, but it's you. Quite the observation hockey you have, brat." "Observation," I whispered. "Yup, one of the 3 aside from Armament and Conqueror." We all sat there, yet no further explanation occurred. Instead, he turned to Nami. "So, we going or what?" We're stuck in his stomach." He pointed at our backs, and I felt my own embarrassment grow. If I could blush, I would be, for standing large and proud was a large gate seared into the distant sky. "Oh," muttered Nami. She turned the boat, wiping the sweat from her brow as she did so. "The name's Crocus," said the old man again. "I appreciate the ride. There's been some developments with Laboon as of late. Been meaning to check further in his stomach to make sure the last liabouts were removed properly. They've been a slippery bunch to be sure." "Wait, there's other people here?" asked Zoro. "Two," muttered Crocus. "A bunch of lowlifes. They've been hunting my friend for the last several days. Keep telling me it's about feeding their village with whale meat. As a sailor, I've needed to forage food at sea before. The idea of hunting a whale was disgusting to me, though for 2 reasons. The first was obviously the nature of the animal itself. Whales were dangerous, yes, but not necessarily in a direct way. I found them beautiful, especially the rare occurrences I got to hear their calls. The other reason was more practical. Laboon is the size of a damn island, I muttered, if not bigger. What sort of monstrosity do they have to carry a whale of that size back to their village? Not to mention storage. A whale Laboon's size could feed entire islands for years if done right. But that was entirely dependent on how the food was processed to begin with and of course how much of the great whale was even edible to begin with. The idea of killing an animal of this size simply for food wasn't just wrong, it was entirely impractical. Crocus actually smirked. "You see the problem? I've kicked them to the curb before, but that single lie has been pissing me off. The idea you tried to kill an island whale for meat is just disgusting." The man spat to the side, thankfully hitting the stomach acid below us. "So, he is an island whale," muttered Zoro. We turned to him, the green-haired man blinking. "What? Last I heard they were supposed to be in the West Blue." "True," muttered Crocus. "Poor Laboon was separated from his pod decades ago, though, to be fair he didn't really seem to care." Crocus had a small smile on his face, reminiscing about something. "That whale had his own family when I first met him. A bunch of newbie pirates that had just started on their adventure into the then uncharted Grand Line." He chuckled. "They showed up with this buoy-sized whale following them. He was such a cute bastard then, barely the size of a lifeboat. Their ship was damaged, so I offered them a place to repair it. His smile died slightly. They were a good bunch, real pirates. Luffy grinned. Those in it for the adventure and freedom, right? Crocus smiled at Luffy. I like you, kid. I can sense that same fever in you that I saw in them. Luffy grinned, smiling even larger. What happened? My stomach sank, feeling it before the words left the older man's mouth. They died. Promised old Laboon they'd return for him. It's been 50 years since then. Oh no, muttered Kaya. It's a shame. Old Laboon has been bashing his head into the red line, trying to get to them. Doesn't matter what I say to him. The poor whale just keeps wailing on the damn mountain. I even tried to convince him his crew gave up. Didn't matter, he'll still keep going. I'm the only one he's got, so I keep patching him up. We reached the gate, and the older man just jumped full throttle. He almost threw his back out doing it, the poor man rubbing his back. Gah! Last time I tried showing off to a bunch of kids, we heard him mutter. Luffy just grinned, chuckling. A strong spin or two at a wheel Corcus had landed in front of and the doors began to open. I narrowed my eyes, watching as two figures suddenly jumped out of the gates. Ha 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 stay, indeed Mr. 9. The two landed in front of us, aiming at what looked like bazookas. Hands up, grinned a rather young man with a 9 tattooed on his face. This ship is ours, grinned the rather beautiful woman beside him. She seemed about Nami's age. The blue hair a rather drastic difference to what I knew. Yet, it matched her eyes well enough. I looked to Luffy, and he nodded. Hey, what are you? GRK. The two were frozen in place. Their faces stuck in a shocked expression. Are these the… Yup. That would be them. The old man was unfazed by the ice, even going as far as to knock on it. It was a solid piece. I could feel the two people inside. I could freeze them from the inside out if I wanted to, but I decided against it. They would suffocate if I waited too long, so I morphed a line into a space I made for air for them. Watching them freak out with tears running down their faces was kind of funny, to be honest. Cathartic too. Crocus landed in front of us, his poor back creaking at the sound. Gah, damn it. I'm a doctor, I shouldn't have this much back pain. You're a doctor, yelled Luffy. That's great. We've needed a doctor. Join us, old man, you're hilarious. Hell, no you moron. I'm old as hell. Adventuring with you lot is a young man's game. Ah, muttered Luffy. Can you at least give a look over on Kaya? The older man blinked as Nami maneuvered the ship. He turned to Kaya, noting she was the only other girl whose name he didn't know. She shivered a bit at the intense stare he had. Stand up, girl, let me give a look. Suddenly the force I could feel from the man enveloped Kaya entirely. His eyes almost had a brilliant shine to them. He rubbed his chin, narrowing his eyes further. I take it your crew isn't the one that did all this to you? It was a simple enough question. The others bristled for a moment. They felt insulted. I tense up for a different reason. For all the man before may have been old and hurting, there was an edge to him. If he didn't like what he heard, we were dead. No, sighed Kaya happily, quite the opposite. I'm here because of them. Though the doctor I found earlier wasn't much help. Course not. Those quacks barely know the right end of a scalpel. The damage is mostly cosmetic. Proper nutrition and exercise will get your body back to what it should be. Best you start exercising with weight overall, girl, as soon as you can. Your body is healing, but if you can get a bit stronger and work on your cardiovascular system, you should regain full functionality within a month or so. What the fuck kind of world was this place? It was insane just how hard these people were. The idea that she would get everything back into top shape within a month would have been an impossibility in my old world. Yet here we were just tugging along in a rather hostile environment, and Kaya was healing faster than any normal person I knew. Then again, the most normal person I knew at the moment was Nami, and she could somehow harm a rubber boy with an angry fist. Still didn't know what the black stuff that wrapped around her hand was, but it was dangerous. My ice cracked and I felt my eyes widen. I could feel a force fighting against me as we delved further along the track of Lagoon's stomach. My eyes splintered entirely as the two freed themselves. I stared. Mr. 9 wasn't all that strong apparently. He was heaving, sweating at the exertion. This Ms. Wednesday wasn't that much better, but the bulk of the strength had come from her. She looked at me with fear, knowing it was me that had frozen her. My right arm chilled into a plated look, bits of frost encroaching on my neck and cheek. The ice flittered across the deck surrounding them. Huh, never seen that before, muttered Luffy. I figured it was possible, I stated. I kept hearing about devil fruits from Garp, and that man couldn't give less of a crap about them. Even went as far as to call them cheats. Luffy's grandfather was a right old bastard. Always took a moment to make fun of me and my eyes. Said something about an Aokoji or whatever whenever he did. We are, shut it, I muttered. My voice had an echo as my eyes speared upwards to their necks. They shrieked as he began exiting the whale. My eyes faltered a bit as a realization filtered in. I turned to Quercus. Please tell me the exit isn't through Laboon's ass? I asked. Well duh, of course not, he muttered. Oh, thank God, I whispered. I felt Nami looked at me weird, but Quercus kept going. We're exiting through the blowhole. Wait, what? The ship rumbled a bit. I didn't have a choice but to disperse my ice. As much as these two intruders pissed me off, I wasn't going to kill them. It was one thing to fight for survival, another to just kill someone outright. That I don't think I could ever do. The realization was nice, but the fact that it made my stomach hurl as we were launched through the whale full force was an unfortunate side effect. I almost hurled outright as we were launched in the air. Now Mr. 9, I turned, glaring at the two pirates that jumped right off. My eyes widened watching a strange contraption that erupted from Mr. 9's back, like a pair of wings. He carried the blue-haired girl away, using the turbulence to alter their flight path. At first, I thought they were flying. Instead, it seemed more like a gliding mechanism. That's awesome, yelled Usopp. Don't compliment them. I cried a bit at the sound of Nami's fist. Maybe one day I will talk to her about physical abuse. Maybe, probably not. We landed with an oomph. I was shocked the ship was so sturdy and strong to survive a fall like this and not capsize. The old coot beside us Crocus seemed no worse for wear, eyeing Laboon's body. The whale had gone unimpeded, beginning to slam its head into the rocks. I looked away, unable to watch this self-mutilation. Oh Laboon, he muttered. Luffy turned to the older man, talking to him for a time. I decided it was best to check the rest of the ship and inspect it while the others were busy. A fall like that couldn't just be ignored. Besides, I had yet to fully take stock of our inventory. A brief look in each of the rooms spied no obvious damage. I placed my hands on the floor of each cabin, letting my ice filter out and finding cracks. Eventually I just had to be honest with myself. There was nothing wrong. It still irked me in a way, that there was no need for repair for a fall of that height, but luckiest, I guess. I went into our storage cabin, a series of 3 cabins closely placed near the bottom of our ship and further away from Luffy as humanly possible. I had nailed a clipboard to the wall of the first room with a pencil and some paper and began to log into everything. I miss printers, I muttered. Typing was just so much faster, not to mention I didn't need to recreate the same page by hand over and over. This world was weird enough, perhaps I'd find a printer or something like it. The first of our items were of course our currently packed clothing. That would soon leave and be placed in our rooms, though how the boys would split the area for their stuff was still a mystery. Food was checked, with mostly non-perishable items back here. Materials for repair, bullets, a few guns. I even spied on a few of what must have been Zoro's and the others' purchases. Weights, tools, and various kitchenwares. Everything seemed up to order. It was more time-consuming than it used to be. We had more crew members, more materials, and honestly, I had less tech. Much of our stock in my case used to be automated to some degree, so it left me with little to actively engage with for hours on end. I heard the cry of a whale as I was finishing up the last of my inventory. I placed the clipboard back in room 1, making my way back to the deck. What happened? I asked. Sanji was smirking. We sent those 2 goons packing. Luffy made a friend. I turned, smiling at the way Luffy was lacking with Laboon. Good to hear. We're all set. No repairs needed and our stock is updated. That's a relief. Sivin think of that to be honest. Guess Luffy was right to make you quartermaster. You know what he considers the quartermaster to be, right? Sanji snorted, snickering as he shook his head. Tell me about it. Man, Luffy's a riot. We're in calmer waters now and it looks like we'll be heading out soon. Let Luffy and the others know I'll be in the kitchen. As Sanji left the deck, I turned to Zoro, feeling a bit put off. The man was just sleeping on the deck, snoring away. Nami, however, was a more interesting subject. She was talking with Crocus, having some sort of bubbled watch being strapped to her wrist. "Is this really a compass?" I heard her say as I closed in. "That's right. The magnetic field of each island screws up normal navigation. You want to each the One Piece. The only way to do that is to go from island to island until you reach the end of the Grand Line." She took a more serious expression, turning to the man. "What about the other islands?" He shrugged. "You can just get forever poses in most junction islands. They are permanently fixated on specific islands, if that's what you want." He tapped the watch on her wrist. "This guy will point to the closest island until you get there. Going anywhere else won't change a thing. It needs to attune first by reaching the island before it will point to the next one." "I see. Thanks, old man. I don't want to consider what we would have done without this." "Think nothing of it. It's been a treat to see some real pirates after so long. Most that come through here threaten Laboon or threaten me. I mean, they don't live very long, but it's the principle of the matter." He started laughing even as Nami lost a bit of her spunk at his casual admittance to murder. "Now, be off with yays. You've been here for hours already. Your ship is ready, and your people secured. Now is no better time." The whale warbled in distress, though I could hear Luffy yelling out at the top of his lungs. "We'll be back, Laboon. I promise anything we find out about your old crew we'll bring back to you. So, stop hurting yourself. I want you nice and strong when I come back, so we can share stories." It brought a tear to my eye to see the once solemn whale now warbling with joy. It was still there, beneath the surface, but my senses could feel the lingering hope beneath that crushing sadness. Perhaps that was what we all needed sometimes, a bit of hope. I looked up at this new world sky. The sun was bracing on my face as the winds of adventure curled around me. "You would have loved here, Diana," I muttered. I turned to leave, seeing Nami looking at me. I gave her a quizzical look, but she remained quiet. "What's wrong with you, lass?" She just shrugged, smiling now, fake as it was. "Nothing at all. Just stressed about setting out. Need to get further into the sea proper if we want to sit and have a meal." I chuckled, following after her. I turned to the old man. "Thank you again, sir." The old man shrugged. "Whatever. Just want to let you know that they'll find out eventually, you know." His eyes pierced my very soul. I swallowed, feeling the weight of his gaze. "The truth?" I muttered. "Yes. The truth." He stalked forward to me, gazing right into my eyes. "Celestial dragons like yo. I'm not a celestial dragon, damn it." I turned, huffing away at the insulted gaze of Crocus. "Don't have to be so rude about it." We set out once again, feeling the wind at our backs. It was a rather strange meeting for me, but I felt that was what our adventure would be in its entirety. Strange and eventful. "Let's sail," cried Luffy, sitting at the end of the Going Merry, to adventure. The wind filled our sails, and our ship lurched forward, busting through the now choppy waters at Laboon's exuberance. The large whale followed us for a time, a long-winded goodbye. Our remaining day was filled with laughter, drinks, and watching Luffy eat an unholy amount of food. Yet, our day did not end. Land ho! I was at the back of the ship, tending to the oranges and hurling ice spears for the hell of it. I turned, wondering what the lass was on about when, sure enough, there was land. "The hell?" I muttered. It was a small space, a large sign that said Whiskey Peak. I blinked. "We got more than enough supplies," said Sanji. "I say we skip." "We're landing," I said. Luffy chuckled. "Come on, John, we just." I grabbed the captain with his jacket, our eyes almost touching as I looked dead in the eye. "We're landing. That whiskey was mine one way or another, damn it." Legend of the Strawhats, Chapter 11. For John, the idea of having whiskey had little to do with taste. The thrum of that burn echoed the memories of a home far away. It was his father's signature drink, the only bit of alcohol the old man would allow himself. Incidentally, John's first drink was a shot of Red Robin his father kept. In that burning, tasteless spirit lied the memories of a home that was unreachable. He needed it. He wanted it. Whiskey Island was a godsend, till it wasn't. Time and time again they served him. Time and time again it was either beer or wine. He tapped his finger on his arms, his eyes covered by the shadows of his rage. Nami was quietly chuckling as Zoro simply drank away at their table. "Here's your drink, my friend." Their waiter came forward, his grin light and hearty. In front of each of them was a large mug of beer, the foam sputtering at the top like a spring. The smell wafted into his nose, a promise of aches being eased and a night of merriment. He took the mug and poured it on the ground. "This isn't whiskey," he growled. Mist crawled from his mouth as he turned, glaring daggers into the poor waiter. The man gulped quietly as he shrugged. "I don't know what to tell you, man, that's whiskey. You're whiskey fucking island. How do you not HRMPH? Nami wrapped her arm around his mouth, pulling back with surprising strength. Kaya just started laughing as she drank, her cheeks dyed red. "Usopp," she slurred, "are you having fun yet?" His blistering cheeks were red for an entirely different reason, as Kaya clambered on him a long time ago, laughing away snuggled into his neck. Sanji was laughing too, though there was a slightly jealous look in his eye. "Yay, Usopp, having fun?" His tone snaked its way into Usopp even more, making the marksman cringe at the teasing tone. He couldn't speak, afraid of what would come screaming out of his mouth if he dared open it. In all his wildest fantasies, this was further than any he dared dream of. That's what he told himself. So great were the mighty Usopp's lies, that he even told them to himself. He went to drink his booze, only for Kaya to quickly grab it and slam it home, laughing the entire time. "Woo!" Nami and Kaya shared a brief smile, before the cat burglar turned to her captive. She eyed him with a dull look. "Are you done yet? HMMMRRRR? Are you seriously that pissed?" "MMMMHHHHMMM, GRRRRMMM. She let him go. The Iceman baring his teeth at all the merriment around him. "They said they had whiskey, we said we're sorry. I don't care. Where is your damn counter?" The waiter swung around again, their plate filled with even more food for their captain. He grinned slightly, a bit of sweat forming at his temple. "Like I said, dear customer, we don't allow our patrons near the alcohol, for safety purposes." "Then get your damn drinks right." The waiter flinched a bit as John stood up, pointing a finger at him. "At least tell me what you got." "I told you, dear customer." He smiled shakingly. "Only the best. Johnny Walker, Glenn Grant, Maker's Mark, you name it." John settled down, staring at the wall. "Fine," he muttered, "get me Johnny Walker. Get it right this time." The poor man walked away, and John shared a look with Luffy and the others. Well, mostly the others. Usopp appeared to be in his own paradisiacal hell, and Luffy, well. John sweated a bit, his eyes staring into the abyss that was Luffy's stomach as the rubber man just kept packing it away. It was like he never stopped, wouldn't stop. For a moment, he thought he was looking at a human Kirby. Honestly, if he thought the joke would hit, he might have even called Luffy that to his face. Instead, he quieted down, trying to put on his best grumpy expression. He must have been doing okay, but he felt ridiculous putting on this whole charade. He locked eyes with Sanji, their mutual understanding clear. Nami was the most natural of them all. Her clear expression, excellent mannerisms, and the seamless way that she acted, honestly it was kind of creepy. Thank God none of these idiots knew what John was like in real life. He could lie with the best of them. He'd been doing it for years. Acting, however? That was an entirely different animal. Perhaps it was karma for all the years he thought he could act better than the movie stars. The best he could do was overreact. If he tried to remain serious, he was pretty sure his face would scrunch up at the effort. I apologize for my hubris, thought John, sending a silent prayer. Aside from his embarrassment of his horrid acting, he also felt a little out of place compared to the rest of the crew. Zoro was of course chill as always, simply keeping his mouth shut. The man was ready to act at any given moment, keeping an eye on a rather bulky woman that sat at the table furthest from them. Sanji and Nami were both chill and natural. Though, Sanji seemed more rough, like he was out of practice. Usopp knew nothing, Kaya definitely knew nothing. Luffy, John gave up trying to understand the rubber boy. He sighed, wistfully rubbing his finger across an empty mug's rim. At first, John had been excited for the island. He genuinely was hopeful to see whatever it was that passed for whiskey in this place. It only made it hurt worse when he realized they didn't even know what it was. It only cemented what he and most of his crew already knew. In fact, he was so excited that when Sanji asked what his favorite brands were, he said it without a second thought. Their entire conversation when they landed in this trash heap of a sham was centered on how Sanji had never heard of those brands in the first place, which go figure. Hence, when these pirates all offered the very drinks that Sanji said didn't exist, he knew something was up. Though, to be fair, he knew something was up the moment they arrived. He still remembered the stoic expression the four of them shared when the moment they docked on the island. A damn near parade started. It was damn instant, banners and everything. Prepped, practiced, and just ready to go at a moment's notice. It was by far the stupidest trap he had ever come across. What sort of retard welcomed pirates? Hence, here they were, sitting and drinking away. He wasn't sure what was up with the drinks, but Nami had made a face for a brief moment when sipping hers. He was sure it was nothing, but he was prepared either way. His feet had already frosted over, ready to freeze them all at a moment's notice. While he was almost 100% confident this was a trap, he had some doubts. After all, this world was weird. For all he knew, these people were genuine, and they were going to get a massive bill in a moment for the trouble. Still, he didn't like the way they were surrounded. They were in a tavern, surrounded by people. Even as the party raged on, there seemed to be a choreograph to it all, a sense of unity and cohesion that wasn't natural. Parties, in his experience, were wild with people. The way people danced and turned to the music, the differences in attitudes and drinking. It was a cacophony of movement, not a symphony. After all, last time he checked, the natural part didn't surround you in a perfect circle, damn it. Yet, it carried on. He had been making a show of pouring his beer into the ground, to stall, and as their waiter approached for the 8th time, he scowled. He could feel the edge of Zoro's patience wearing thin. To be honest, John was also not certain he could keep the facade any longer either. He didn't care much for what their waiter said, instead turning to the mug he placed in front of him. He chugged the thing as quickly as he could, noting one incredible thing about it. It was cheap beer through and through. No wonder Nami cringed at this, he thought with a frown. Another hiccup *round. He cringed a bit, hoping it didn't show on his face. The hiccup had to be the fakest sound he'd ever made in his life. It worked, thank the Lord. He could see the small glints of metal. No, that wasn't accurate. He saw it, sure, but it was less that he was aware of it and turned his gaze to the small man hiding beside the large woman. A consequence of what he sensed, rather than sensing the danger due to what he saw. Was this hockey? It was a completely alien feeling, absurdly difficult to grasp in his mind. It slipped through his fingers no matter how tight he seemed to grip this power. By all logic, the power itself shouldn't even work, and yet here he was. The tingles of his brain shivered as he felt the chill of those around him. They've been waiting for him to drink. As he made a fool of himself. He drank a second, a third, laughing the entire time. His facade was breaking. He doubted he could hold it for much longer without them catching on, if they didn't already. Thankfully, something finally happened. The well-built woman that was sitting a distance away moved. Zoro followed the larger woman out the door, mindlessly ignoring the glares that shot his way as she broke off from his crew. He noted the way the party raged on soon afterwards, the strange pause as Zoro left just sinking this feeling deeper, the chaos of their host's act working against them. Luffy fell asleep, his stomach bulging as he snored away. Nami's head fell forward, seated far away as she was. Sanji followed suit, with Usopp pretending to sleep off all things for some reason. The room felt deathly silent as all eyes turned to John. The Iceman was frigid, eyeing each of the suddenly stoic men that stared at him. He took a loud slurp out of his mug, the sound echoing through the now quiet tavern. He smacked his lips for good measure as he shook the mug upside down. He tried, he really did. He bobbed his head forward, about to pretend to sleep as well, but, well, everything has a breaking point. I can't do this anymore, John sighed, looking at all the people in the building. Your beer is shit, he muttered. As he stood, the room became tense. He looked outside the small window, noting 3 people, one of whom was a familiar blue-haired pirate. I suggest you do Scatty's grace, he whispered. A burst of white fog shot out around him, filling the room with a brutal freezing mist. The floor crunched as spikes of ice broke through the wood. This technique was familiar to him, the skill he used to freeze Don Krieg. He felt the same way he did back then. The words, the name, it all focused his will. When he uttered that name, all he thought of was that skill, what he wanted to happen. The other skills were ingrained in him. Things that he knew he could do, but the names differed. There was more to his fruit, more to him than he could feel, but it was an abyss. Blank darkness that he couldn't see. Yet, ever since his head exploded, he felt more in tune with this power. More interconnected. It was a blessing, really. After all, what made Scatty's grace such an amazing technique to him was that it wasn't lethal. He could turn the ice into spikes, like he did for Don Krieg, killing them within the shell, or he could make it where they couldn't breathe. Against all logic, somehow, someway, someone could breathe while frozen solid. It went against every single facet of science that he knew, but it was doable. He felt it in his gut, the same way the sky was blue. The surety of it wasn't natural, like the instinct that came with using his fruit. But for now he kept his hand back. He turned, noting Nami looking up, shivering. "Asshole," she muttered, "it's freezing." Usopp and Kaio were still out, with Luffy just snoring away on the floor. He nudged their captain, making him shake up. "What happened? Oh, you got him. Lame." John chuckled as his captain stood, patting his stomach down to its usual size. "You made me think you didn't know what was happening for a bit there, Luffy." He shrugged, yawning away. "They're all so weak. Got me some food while I fooled around, so it's all good. Where's Zoro anyway?" "Outside," muttered Nami, obviously. The crew exited to see the sight of a man, launching cannons from his hair. John was shell-shocked, his face blank as he tried to grapple with the absurdity of what he saw. "I'm not seeing things, am I, lad?" His captain just laughed, of course. The large man pulled the cord on his hair, launching several mini cannonballs at Zoro. His face was stern, his focus full, until he turned to them. He blinked, before screaming his eyes out. "How are you all standing?" The conversation was dulled to John's ears, his face falling slightly. He felt it, like something dragging a finger behind his skull. Zoro appeared in front of the muscle-bound woman, crushing her skull in his hands. At first, he wanted to help him, but that feeling persisted. That, and Zoro had things well in hand as he danced with the other three. As Zoro fought and the minutes passed by, John couldn't help but grow more agitated. There was something here, in the general vicinity. He looked around, trying to pinpoint it as his crew got their jollies, laughing at the way Zoro soloed the entire makeshift crew. He knew what they were. Even with his lack of attention, he could tell that Zoro surprised them. There was the blue-haired pirate and her partner again. Not that he cared much for what they were saying. He eyed them for a moment, wondering if perhaps it was them. Watching them cry out for mercy as Zoro began attacking them dispelled him of that notion. Every experience he had in his life was telling him that he was just overthinking, or was on edge. He was inclined to believe it, at first anyway. Yet, the world as he knew it was too alien to ever be comfortable, so he continued his search. As he scanned the rooftops, trying to see what was bugging him, Nami's elbow lightly dug into his sides. "What?" he asked, looking down at her snickering expression. She merely pointed, eyeing the group that looked near tears. Zoro was smirking as he held them at sword point. "So," muttered Zoro, "what's your endgame here? Is Baroque works that desperate or what?" "We're not telling you anything," cried the blue-haired woman, her lip trembling a bit. His crew turned to him, his eyes shifting between each of them. They wanted something from him, obviously. He just turned back to the roofs instead. "Don't bother me for something so stupid, lass. I'm trying to." "We're not stupid," they yelled, though their cries were no match for Luffy's rancorous laughter. His captain went over, happily clambering to Zoro. It was just him and Nami now, near the doorway of this fake tavern. "I still feel like something's here," thought John. A twang echoed in his mind, the sound of a quiet screeching string ripping in his mind. His instincts took over and he suddenly grabbed Nami and covered her body with his own. "Hey, what are yo?" Bang! A thunderous explosion hit his back, covering the two in a massive cloud of dust. Luffy's hat was down, his serious gaze turning towards a duo walking into the light. Wait," muttered the curly-haired man. As they stepped into the light, a stoic man was running a finger down his gun. Beside him, a pretty blonde woman snickered, a parasol twirling in her fingers. "The three of you lost to one pirate, pathetic," muttered the man. He holstered the gun beneath his long coat, his black glasses glimmering in the moon's light. His skin tone was something rarely seen in Luffy's neck of the world, looking more in tune with Usopp. The woman smirked. "Oh come on Mr. Five. You know the help hasn't exactly been skilled nowadays." He scoffed, turning away from his partner. "You're always trying to explain things, Miss Valentine. Let's just get this job over and done with." Why are you here?" coughed the larger man, his body slowly moving in front of the blue-haired girl. "We're here to sink a couple of rats," muttered Mr. Five, "as the boss man has commissioned." "Rats you say? I don't recall what you could. Shut it Mr. 8. I'm not here for an investigation." The glasses seemed to glint as a reddish hue echoed from within, his killing intent slowly encroaching on the group. "Like I said, we're here to key into his index finger, shaping both his hands into guns." "You," he said at Mr. 8, "and you," he said, pointing at Ms. Wednesday. "What?" muttered Mr. 9, "that doesn't make any sense. We've worked with both for years, there must be some kind of mistake." Bang! A torrent of raw kinetic power flew at them. An explosion tunneled into a tight spear-like shape emanating from his fingers. Luffy stood in front of the group, expanding and absorbing the blows without much problem. If one looked carefully enough, they could see Mr. Five sweat a bit, though his face remained as calm as ever. He readied himself as Zoro drew his blades, but Luffy held his hands up. He turned to Zoro, smirking. "Not our fight Zoro, not this time." From the smoke of Mr. Five's first attack, stood John. His clothes were unruffled, much to his own shock, but the out-of-place man turned, eyeing Mr. Five himself. "That almost hurt damn it," yelled Nami, her gaze narrowing at the duo. The Norseman walked to his captain, eyeing the calm teen. Whatever was spoken was done without words, for his captain knew what he wanted. "Go wild John," snickered Luffy. "Guy tried to take you out after all, show him what you got." He cracked his knuckles turning to the gunman. "So, you're the ones I sensed?" The darker man smirked as he twirled his gun from its holster. He popped open the chamber, smirking as he stared John down. "Someone standing after my attack? That's new." John blinked, turning to Luffy. He eyed the gunman, his own gaze less than impressed. "Is it?" Valentine snickered a bit, though it died quickly enough at the scowl her partner gave her. John stared at her as she suddenly lifted into the air without problem, making him gaggle at her. "Flight," he muttered. Basking in his gaze, she merely blushed and smiled bashfully. "Impressed? You should be." She twirled at him, twisting her body to make the best use of the wind to hover over him. She grinned, aiming precisely. "Well pretty boy, nice knowing you, 10,000 kilogram press." She rocketed to him with a force that would topple towers. Her smirk died as she eyed the sudden icy spikes that grew from his body. She screamed, instantly reversing her weight to suddenly fly away from him. The small gust of wind was thankfully enough to avoid a piercing death. Bothy stared at the Iceman, a frosty breath seeping from his mouth as the ice receded. "The hell? A logia?" John walked towards Mr. Five, intent on finishing it quickly. He was a ways away and unlike Zoro and Luffy, didn't really have a means to close in on an opponent like they did. With that said, ever since he had his head explode, his powers had been streamlined so to speak. He didn't entirely understand how it all meshed together. Why some techniques were known, like they were engraved into him, while others needed to be conjured. While he wasn't the most fictionally inclined individual, that didn't mean he didn't have sources to draw from. He smirked, remembering a spunky woman from Nebraska. Jet black hair and a punk rock attitude, she only loved two things in life, her guitar and her console. "Too slow," yelled Mr. Five, cocking his gun. John lunged forward, the ground in front of him freezing over as he used his leverage and mass to suddenly surge forward. It was slower than whatever Zoro managed to do, but it was a damn sight faster than his lumbering running. He flipped forward, his legs breaking apart from the force of the explosion. Unlike the thermite woman though, he didn't feel much pain. In fact, it was barely a tickle as his legs merely regrew in flight. All those years being forced to fight Luffy gave John enough experience to right himself and land on his feet, sliding right beside Mr. Five. He wasted no time, socking the man in his ribs. His eyes widened as the explosion man detonated, obscuring the two in a surge of dust. Luffy whistled as Nami glared at the woman, her keen eyes gauging the winds as she simply wafted in the air. "Hey, I got a bone to pick with you," growled Nami, "your partner tried to kill us." "So," yelled Valentine, "what of it? So, get over here." Nami hefted a rock, managing to pelt the woman in her forehead of all places. "Gah! You bitch! Take this." The winds managed to shift her right over Nami, the navigator looking up at her with a lazy gaze. 10,000 kilogram press. She surged downward. Her cruel grin twisted into surprise as Nami simply sidestepped her. Before the poor woman could react, she was bonked in the head with Nami's staff. She waited a moment, the navigator prepared for anything, well, anything but the unconscious form of Valentine that was. She turned to Zoro, who merely shrugged. "Why do you think I rejected their proposal? They're pathetic." "Hey," he turned, his eyes drilling into Mr. Nine without mercy. The poor man whimpered, looking to his partner for solace. He then realized what he was doing and turned away. Nami whistled at the second explosion ripping through the night. "You sure you'll be okay?" she asked. "He's fine," muttered Luffy, "winning isn't what's important here." The crew turned to their captain. Zoro smirked, eyeing the very quality that brought him to Luffy in the first place, the feeling his captain brought as the air grew heavy with his presence. Luffy was all business, watching the fight intently. "He's making a choice here," muttered Luffy, "so hang back guys. Let John finish this." Zoro had a feeling he knew what his captain was on about, bringing himself to a perfect seiza beside his captain. His blades rested in front of him, with the pure white sword resting just over his lap. "You guys are weird," she whispered a bit. Honestly, if anything she was a bit weirded out. As yet another explosion rang out, the force whipping her hair around her head, she found her gaze drawn to her captain. The rubber man was stoic, his arms crossed as his eyes darted about, following his quartermaster. He was serious, that much was true, but it was the confidence that made Nami smile and turn away. "Well, whatever this is, you guys got it covered," she snickered, rubbing her hands. "I got a town to loot?" Nami blinked at the sight of the blue-haired pirate muttering with Mr. 8. She read their lips, smirking at the sound of money clinking in her ears. She approached them, her money-hungry smile growing with each step. Whatever had distracted her did little for Luffy, his gaze heavy as he narrowed his eyes. Even through the smoke, he could still see John's heavy form weaving through, sending heavy punch after heavy punch into his enemy. "Not much of a fighter," muttered Zoro, "don't." The swordsman blinked, eyeing his captain lazily. "You don't agree? John's a slow starter, but he fights differently than we do, see?" Crunch. Gaw. From the smoke came Mr. 5, holding his side, blood seeping from a shallow cut. I'm a bomb man. You can't cut me." From the smoke John came through, his face calm as he narrowed his eyes. 3 jagged claws sprouted from his knuckles, dripping with some blood. "You keep saying that, but I don't think you understand what that means." "I know more than you, hotshot. Fine. Seems it will take more than some simple explosion." John's arm turned to ice, needles ready to fire, but his face faltered as he watched the ever-serious Mr. 5 pick his nose. His face fell as the man really dug in there. It wasn't a long process, but he was digging for gold, that's for sure. A wallop of snot, perfectly spherical, was on the tip of his finger. John frowned, ignoring the way the man loaded it into his gun. "That's just gross, man. My entire body is explosive," he grinned, leveling the gun at him. "My skin, bones, blood, even my snot are all powerful ammunition." He smirked as he cocked the gun. "No one's ever survived my GRK." The man keeled over as a stump of ice shot from the ground. It dug into his stomach hard enough to make him curl around the frigid stone. He coughed, his spit hitting the ground like fireworks. His surprise was so great, his gun flew from his grip across the ground. John bringing it over his shoulder and freezing it into place. "Be bastard," growled the hitman. "Honestly, whatever is with you people and monologuing is ridiculous," muttered John. "Did you honestly think I was just going to sit there as you fired whatever your booger was supposed to be? I won't let you." Crunch. The crunching of cartilage breaking over bone rattled the last of Mr. 5's senses. The glasses on his eyes shattered as he flew into a building, slumping down unconscious. "Knew it," muttered John, "Paramecia, not logia." Parameshes were different from logias in several respects. In this instance, an autonomous defense. Well, less a defense and more a continuous constitution. Far as John could tell, he was ice all the time, every time. He had to concentrate to really solidify himself. It was how he enjoyed hot showers and baths, though it proved less relaxing than he'd like. Parameshes on the other hand were half and half. Some were like Luffy, others like this man here. John had to hit the man a few times to get a feel for it, but he got the gist of what the bomb man was really going for. He was effectively detonating his body before he got hit, making it look like he exploded on contact. The kinetic force sent the blow away, keeping him entirely unharmed. It was a cute trick really, but one that was easily discovered if someone could tank the hit. As he neared the man, a sudden realization hit him. This man, he tried to kill him. It was a piss-poor attempt. The explosions barely tickled all things considered. Whether that meant he was stronger than this Mr. 5 he didn't rightly know. What he did know was that the man was now at his mercy. Multiple thoughts ran through his head. A single spike to the head would ease any possible concern of the man coming after them. He could take the man on easily it seemed. But their boat? Who's to say this man couldn't lob massive explosions at his leisure in the confines of a ship? A splash of water and they were useless, a sunk ship and they were dead. His fist clenched as he hovered over the bomb man, his eyes glazing over as he made a choice. A spear of ice formed, its jagged edge sharp and ready. The name of his most explosive technique. One that could pierce and freeze the enemy from within if need be, jutting out massive spikes for internal damage, shredding whatever it came into contact with or encasing it as he desired. In many ways, it could be his signature, the Gnur. But it never fell. For all his logic, the idea of killing a man like this, so thoroughly beaten, it proved hard. It was so easy to think of the act, so easy to justify it in the confines of the mind. Kill this man and your problems are over. Kill this man and he could never attack you again. Kill this man, and that was one less enemy. Simple. Perhaps it was that simple, but it was not that easy. For all his readiness to kill a foe, it wasn't like this. The spear fell, slamming into the ground in front of the bomb man. The ice shuddered over, and much like the men inside that tavern, he was left alive. He looked away, noting the grin on Luffy's face as he approached. "Captain," he said simply, "so, you've made your choice, huh?" "My choice?" Zoro was beside him, smirking. "So that's what you were after?" "What are you talking about?" muttered John. Luffy shrugged. "I know you. You always worry about the big stuff and the little stuff all at once. I know you were worried about being a monster or something. Yet, here you are, right?" He stilled, only to smirk sheepishly as he rubbed the back of his hat-covered head. "Was I that obvious?" he muttered. Luffy only snickered. "Nah. Just overheard that conversation with Grandpa some years back. What do you want to do about them?" said Luffy, gesturing to Ms. Valentine and nodding to Mr. 5. "If possible, turn in any bounties they may have. Perhaps we can barter some berries with the locals to have them turn it in on our behalf for a cut. Maybe use those black market guys or whatever," muttered Luffy, picking his nose. "I don't trust them," chuckled John. "They offered their services way too readily. They want something and I'll be damned if we accidentally give it to them. We don't need the cash that badly. Besides, from what we heard." All right, growled Zoro, "Nami's already robbing this place blind. Let's just get the rest and head out." "No rest? The longer we stay here the more likely their reinforcements will arrive," muttered John. This world was unlike his modern era, but considering they used telepathic snails for long-range communication, John didn't want to put it to chance that there weren't some equally zany means of getting information out in real time. This wasn't just a single crew they were dealing with. Zoro was right, it was best to leave. Yet, for all their best-laid plans, there was always a kerfuffle to be had. John's face fell as he approached the old tavern, noting the way Nami was near tears with Mrs. Wednesday. Mr. 9 was blubbering as always, while Mr. 8 was sitting stoically, nodding along with crossed arms. They were not alone either, as the rest of the crew had joined them. "What?" muttered John. Usopp was awake now, tears streaming down his face. "Ju-hn, get off me lad." He was struggling to get Usopp to let go of him as Kaya was wiping a solitary tear away from her face. Sanji was stoic, lighting a cigarette and taking a drag. He turned to them, nodding. "What is happening?" demanded John, pushing Usopp's face away. It's complicated, he muttered. Vivi is an escaped princess who infiltrated the organization that is taking control of her kingdom. John turned to Nami, surprised she would fall for such a ruse. She's being serious. It was how he spoke of it. The way his eyes sank in drenched in memories John could only imagine. He fully believed them. For a moment he thought the wannabe womanizer was just going along with it to recruit a new female member. But no, this strange hockey sense shuddered with the weight of what Sanji was feeling, fleeting as it was. It was the same darkness that John felt when they first met, rearing its head. It was not as caustic as his own was, but it was thick all the same. Easy to become mired in, if one wasn't careful. That's great and all, but what does that matter to us? Zoro said it with a straight face, but John could already feel the slight need to come forward. Please, whispered Ms. Wednesday. I need to get back home. I will pay you as much money as you could possibly need when my country stabilizes. Miss Nami already? If Nami wants to help you, then I'm down, grinned Luffy. While it brought a smirk and a smile to everyone's faces, John was not so convinced. He looked at Nami, her grin faltering at his stoic expression. She smiled sheepishly as she looked away. She said we'd help you for a fee? Mrs. Wednesday blinked. Well yes. 1 billion berries actually. It's what got me discussing my kingdom's dire straits in the first place. He sighed, listening as she went on to explain the specifics of what brought her under Baroque works employ. Suffice to say, it was pretty bleak. My country has been under siege by these people. Their plans have been in action for decades. I needed to know more, and when I told Ingaram we developed the plan to infiltrate them. I thought we were rather successful. Apparently we were not as careful as we could have been, she admitted. She bit her lip, turning to them. I can't promise to pay you, not until I free my country of these villains. But after? Whispered Nami, her face looking away. Of course, I'd pay the heroes who assisted me handsomely. Nami grinned like the cat who ate the canary. She snickered a bit, but John could feel that it was all an act. The entire charade of her conniving act hid a woman that desperately wanted to help another. The good-natured desire buried under the cynicism and greed that she had built over the years. John said nothing, already knowing it was pointless. One only needed to see in to know his captain was all in. The worst part was that it was so painfully obvious too. No, thought John, the worst part has to be how on board everyone is. It's a stretch to believe all of this without proof of some kind. I mean really, a princess of the nation you were taking over was able to infiltrate your organization? Does no one use a photograph? Even if they were telling the truth, John was certain it was misinformed. Even if this woman was telling the truth, he doubted she was as capable of espionage as she assumed. Not with an organization of this caliber. His thoughts derailed as he looked at Mr. 9. He turned his head to eye the still unconscious forms of Mr. 5 and Ms. Valentine. On second thought, he cringed internally. It may very well be true. Either way, he'd go along with it all, if only to be cautious for the crew. Someone had to be. So what's your name? Asked Luffy. Oh, I'm Nerfatari Vivi, but please call me Vivi, I insist. The Iceman eyed the slight cringe from Ingaram. The poor man likely detesting the familiarity his princess insisted on between her and the pirates. The feeling that he had since the beginning, it was still there. For some reason he could still feel like someone was here somehow, yet the direction eluded him. He turned to eye the rooftops again, eyeing between the alleyways of the homes that he could eye in this night sky. There were a few people mulling about. Likely the average villager. It stung a bit to be looked at with fear, but there was little he could do for the situation outright. Wait, so you infiltrated this organization for what exactly? Muttered Sanji, dragging his cigarette for another breath, keeping it between his fingers as he spoke further. I get why you did, but what were you going for in the first place? You speak about this thing like it's a colossal organization? The identity of its members are hidden even from other members, said Vivi. She gestured to herself as she continued. The higher-up operatives all use code names. I'm Ms. Wednesday and Mr. Ingaram is number 8. Frontier agents like myself are not privy to the identity of the leader of the organization, but that didn't stop us. She leaned forward and John felt his frown deepen. There was something new in the air, some kind of smaller presence than the one he had been feeling. It is imperative that you do not know the identity of this man. It would put you all in danger if you actively knew who was acting against my kingdom. So it's best if you don't know. I see, they're that dangerous, huh? Muttered Usopp. Yes, crocodile is the most. Her voice stopped as she suddenly covered her mouth. John sighed as he rubbed the back of his head. He stilled, feeling a presence loom closer. He rapidly turned his head, ready to face. What the fuck? He muttered. Everyone turned, their own ghastly expressions eyeing the strangest thing most of them had ever seen. Is that an otter? Asked Kaya. Before they could react fully, the otter hopped on the back of a goggles-wearing vulture. Faster than any bird that size had any right to be, they took to the air. For a moment John made to create some eyes, but if they were what he thought they were, it was best not to. He wasn't as accurate as Usopp or the others. Hitting such a small target that could move so agilely wasn't going to happen. The less they knew about him the better. There was only one reason for such a strange get-up otter to be looming over their conversation. Even if the thought of such a thing made John wonder if he was going mad. The unluckies, gasped Vivi, I'm so sorry, they're already going straight to Crocodile. He'll know that you know, I swear I didn't. Luffy waved her off. Hey, he's just a warlord of the sea, we'll be fine. He turned to John, giving him a thumbs up. Even in the face of his oldest crewmates, lack of enthusiasm didn't deter his heroic grin. Come on, it will be an adventure, right John? I'd rather live, thank you, he muttered. He stood up, Vivi stiffening a bit. Unlike the others, who had been opening and welcoming, John remained stoic. His gaze was always appraising her, and she felt that it wasn't always good. What's done is done. Judging from the way Nami doesn't have a bag full of treasure, there's a reason we're not looting this place, right? Well, it is a normal village, muttered Vivi, anything we take would. She was suddenly shaken by Nami as the poor ginger began screaming at her. Look what you've done here, I'm sorry, cried Vivi, it just slipped out. A lot of good that does us. John zoned out a bit as she scrambled to explain, his gaze looking towards the sea. He narrowed his eyes, that same presence still scratching on his brain. Luffy was just laughing the entire time, even as Nami began to cry as she slumped to her knees with Usopp. We're going to be hunted by a warlord of the sea, she cried. We're dead, cried Usopp, we're so friggin' dead. I think we might be alright, soothed Kaya, rubbing the poor man's back. It's not like we're alone in this, right? We have Luffy, Zoro, and John with us. Zoro cringed a bit, eyeing Kaya bashfully. Sounds a lot more secure with John than me for some reason, he growled. He shuddered a bit at the demure smile she gave him. Is that a problem? He blinked, his frown turning into a grin. Whatever spine left Usopp's body, it seemed to firm itself into the sickly girl before him. Though, she wasn't sickly anymore, was she? If anything, she was looking rather hale nowadays. Whatever drink was given to her was doing wonders to her physique, adding muscle rapidly. Honestly, it made Zoro want to try one of them, if only to help further his own strength. Though, to be fair, she wasn't any bigger than Nami, and less toned overall. If anything, she was right up there with the average civilian. Alright, smirked Zoro, speaking of, hey. John was still staring at the sea, but he turned his head to Zoro. What's up your ass? You've been looking around like there's some kind of ghost. I can feel something, I think. That's nice and all, but we have more important things in front of us now. Like dealing with this warlord. Nami sniffled as she stood up. I'd leave if I could. Wait, they don't know what we look like. Her face became stoic as the rest of them as the otter flew by them. There was a smugness to it, as it flipped several notebooks with incredible lifelike designs. There was one for each of them. Usopp suddenly stood, leaning on his shoulders, his eyes shimmering for a moment as he fired several shots from his slingshot. The pellets screamed as they whizzed through the air. Himself, Kaya, Sanji, and John's portraits were destroyed. Nami's was rather damaged, leaving only Luffy's and Zoro's as unscathed as the duo expertly avoided the last few pellets. Usopp kept firing at them, nipping the wings of the vulture as they flew further and further away. He scowled, looking at his slingshot. Damn it, I can't get enough range. Sorry guys, I tried. We all stared at him. What? Kaya was blushing madly as he started freaking out, looking around him. What did I do? I thought that was a good thing. It was a good thing, snickered Sanji. We just thought you'd sit there crying the entire time rather than doing anything. Thanks for proving us wrong, Haha. Even as the bird flew to a point that John couldn't see it, the presence was still there. It was starting to become annoying. I think we should. He turned to see Ingaram in full drag, the man stoic as they locked eyes. I don't judge, said John placidly, you do you lad. I don't dress like this normally, yelled Ingaram. The group turned to see the larger man, his eyes drilled into Vivi's. Princess Vivi, eventually the intelligence network of Baroque works will have your faces and will be hunting you down. If we are to ensure that our intelligence gets back to His Majesty, I must play the decoy. He nodded to her. I will be taking a direct R. Said you would take her, yes? Nami gritted her teeth, yet she begrudgingly nodded. Yay. We can talk about payment after. I am forever grateful. Truly. I know that you have kind hearts, especially after facing your swordsman. He smiled at Zoro. I can tell you could have killed us at any time. A man as merciful as yourself can be trusted with this. Well, that and we don't have much of a choice. No, we don't, sighed Vivi. So I will be the distraction. John blinked, eyeing the dummies beneath the man's arm. Wouldn't it be smarter to just put a blue wing on the dummy and pretend that's Vivi in the hold? I mean, they know you serve her, why the drag? Ingaram's face was blank as shadows obscured his eyes. He twitchingly turned to John. The same placid expression remained on the man's face as he gave a small smile. I don't judge, lad. You do you. You, a fair point. But a blue wig like that is not so, you have to understand, this is all for Princess Vivi's sake. He merely nodded. Of course. Ingaram blushed even further, his eyes scowling. A world noble like yourself should know just how, sir. The utter disappointment drenched on John's lips would have killed plants if they were around. The air of utter disgust was clear as he clicked his tongue. I'm not a celestial dumbass, dammit. Of course sir, muttered Ingaram, my apologies. Vivi blinked, the memory of the strange accents the celestial dragons had coming back to her. She had only ever attended a few ceremonies with her father those years ago, as a small child. So the memories were not exactly fresh. Yet, it didn't matter. The group followed Ingaram to their ship. It was a rather dainty vessel, but strong. Nothing out of the ordinary with it. If anything, it made John smile slightly. Such an ordinary vessel reminded him of his father's flagship. It was nice for a moment. It was still such a shock to him, how these vessels could be manned so low. Even with modern boats of that size, it would require at least a couple of people on hand. Princess Vivi, please be safe, said Ingaram. Even dolled up as the man was, his words echoed with a calmness that struck them silent. Vivi only smiled, nodding as she shook hands with her attendant. I'm not entirely sure what he is to her, he thought. As he manned the boat and waved to them, John felt that presence stir once more. He looked everywhere, his face scrunching in concentration. Finally, he just gave up. Whatever this was, it was something different as to what he thought it was. There was no violence to it. It felt like a pair of hands caressing his throat. There was danger in it, a power that exceeded his own it would seem, but it lacked the taint of a killer's desire. He heard it like the humming of a siren, a voice in the dark. It was not his ears that heard it or his eyes that saw it. It was something internal, something that his senses couldn't be wholly attributed to. The only comparison he could make was the humming of a voice adhered to a song. It was strong yet heavy, intent on something. The specifics eluded him and he decided that it must be something beyond him entirely. It was a ridiculous thought, that this hockey was so easily mastered. Well, that was assuming this was hockey and not something else. Are you ready, Captain? He asked, finally relaxing. Yup. Let's see. The imaginary hands that had softened around his neck suddenly clenched. Boom. The explosion sent a searing white into his vision, his eyes losing sight of all color as he watched the shadowy remains of the wreckage sink to the clutches of Davy Jones. Everyone, even Zoro, was struck stupid. Vivi stood at the edge of the waters, her hands liftless towards the shuttered remains of Inagram's boat. She couldn't speak, and as the color returned to their senses, the others began to run. We gotta go, now, Zoro spaced first, the spearhead of their escape. Come on Vivi, we gotta go. She was silent, unmoving. She eeped as she felt herself lifted off her feet, the tallest of the crew lugging her over his shoulder. I have her, Captain. Go, yelled John. John didn't have time for hesitation. His senses were frayed and on overdrive. He felt cornered and honestly, a little off-putted. He bit his lip, wondering when it was that he had become accustomed to this hockey, and how long he had trusted in it so fully. When did he start being so comfortable with it, thinking it was always right? He knew there was something with it, that there was something about it that wasn't going right, yet, he ignored it. He wasn't going to ignore it this time. "Pee-pee, put me down," yelled Vivi. "I can rue you. She had the wind knocked out of her lungs as John's shoulder dug into her stomach. She couldn't breathe for a moment as he jumped with all his might over a piece of debris from their fight in the town. A simple jump would have been fine, though, he had underestimated just how high all his might actually went. He was already over the standard side of a building, his eyes wide as he tried to keep calm. I just jumped a small house," he thought. Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji were up in the air with him. "Good idea, John. Now we can see the entire village if need be." "I don't see anything," said Zoro as they began to fall. "Same here," said Sanji, his cigarette long discarded. Below them was Nami masterfully weaving past any of the homes, her parkour flawless as she jumped over and around whatever she could find. She was darting about, her fear plain as she kept trying to be aware of any snipers. The way she shouldered to cover as she seamlessly moved was something John was actually impressed by. Kaya, much to his shock, was actually quite fast, easily outpacing Usopp and Nami entirely. Actually, it was insane. She was blitzing past them, with zero regard for any sort of protection to herself. She couldn't jump very high and she stumbled quite a bit, but they were in pace with the men in the air. "I see the going merry." As John landed, he tried his best not to send a shock to Vivi's stomach. "Zoro!" he yelled. A pillar of ice jutted out of the ground, spearing into the night sky. Rather than jumping off the ground again, Zoro used his new leverage, launching himself forward with her considerable might. Luffy was quick to follow, with Sanji falling in line behind the Iceman. Kaya was breathing heavily, and Sanji was quick to scoop her up. "I'll get ahead," he said seriously. He basically disappeared from view, faster than anyone else in the crew on 2 feet. Vivi was slamming her hands into his back and he finally relented, letting the woman flounder for a moment. She whistled and before John could utter any sort of rebuttal for giving away their position, a massive duck came running by. His face was sucked in, as his eyes bugged out at the absurd sight. That's a big-ass duck," he croaked. "This is Karoo, now go, follow them." The duck sped past them without a problem, carrying the princess with all its fluffy dignity. John was running, but he felt his mind enter the absurd realms of thought. He couldn't have seen that properly right. A grown woman riding a gargantuan duck, what? "I'm high right now," thought John, "I must be." His thoughts shriveled as the presence overwhelmed him again. It was still around them, but he couldn't bear that thought too much anymore. The boat was in sight now, Zoro and Luffy already hoisting the anchor. "Hurry up," yelled Zoro. Vivi was already on the ship, her broken frown gaining strength as rage overtook her shock. John slowed down, allowing Usopp and Nami to pass him as he looked around, his eyes narrowed. He hopped on his feet as he ran up the plank onto the ship. The sails opened and expanded with the mighty winds, lurching forward roughly as Nami took the helm. "Hold steady boys, we're going full speed." Zoro full mast, Sanji, adjust the sails 40 degrees. She continued barking orders, the ship lurching slowly as it began to pick up speed. They were close to the harbor here, so it would take a moment. In his legs, the way the ship groaned and rumbled beneath him. The moment they were righted, they would cut through the waves with a frightening grace. Just what they needed all things considered. He took a breath, yet he couldn't relax. Even as the island began to dwindle in the distance, the feeling remained. He closed his eyes, focusing on the feeling as best he could. It always slipped through his mental fingers, never something he could touch directly, but maybe that was the problem? He was trying too hard to direct. What if it was instead about letting go? In the inked expanse of his closed sight, he saw for a brief moment a flicker of purple, a voice. It flickered again. Nami brushed past him as she began helping Sanji, the poor man trying to do 2 jobs at once. Usopp and Kaya were already manning the cannons while Luffy was about to head up to the crow's nest to keep watch. The shade of purple flickered again, and he turned, eyeing the woman who just began sitting down. She blinked, eyeing his expression as his deep blue eyes tore into her. She smirked. In quite a rush, I see. The entire crew froze as they turned to the sound of the voice. As much as he hated to admit it, this was probably the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. Her body was downright sinful, but it was the expression on her face that almost did him in. The supreme confidence, the playful gaze, and the way her lips turned into that perfect smirk. She was trouble, in more ways than one. You know her, Vivi? Asked Luffy. She a bad guy? He's Miss All Sunday. So a bad guy, scowled Luffy, slamming his fists together. I have to say, you ran quite a ways, smirked Miss Sunday. I was wondering when it was you'd stop running. For a while I thought you knew I was onto you. You let us follow you, growled Vivi. Let us see Crocodile. Why? So you could kill us off for sport. So, she a bad guy or not? Muttered Luffy. Now's not the time to fool around, damn it. Luffy deflated a bit, wilting at the glint in Zoro's gaze. I'm not so heartless, chuckled Miss Sunday. I just wanted you to have a sporting chance. Now, here we are. After all, the idea of a princess rushing off to do whatever she can for her country, making an enemy of Baroque works along the way is just ridiculous. You killed him, cried Vivi, tears forming. John scowled, noting the lack of desire from this woman. Sanji and Usopp already moved, each aiming a gun and slingshot respectively. You know what you're doing? Asked Usopp. Not a clue. Click. But it doesn't seem that hard. Now I'm not one for fighting women. Sanji's face hardened, his eyes dulling as they glossed over. But you hurt a member of our crew. I hope you're ready to pay for that. He itched to pull the trigger. I'd appreciate it, sighed Miss Sunday, if you'd point those things away from me. Her words echoed with the dull sting of boredom, and the two men were flung away by an invisible force. John noted how everyone began to sweat, the staff in Nami's hands falling along with Zoro's swords. What the, how? It has to be, whispered Vivi, it's a devil fruit. Which one? What's her power? She turned to John, her eyes lighting up a bit. Aren't you the cold one? So, Mr. Captain, hey. Calm down, muttered John, she's doing it on purpose. Her smirk grew, her head tilting upward with her smile. The brim of her hat highlighting the mystique of her allure perfectly. Well, someone with a brain. She rested her head on her hand lazily, eyeing Luffy as she smiled. Take all my fun, why don't you? There's no need to get all excited here after all. I have no orders to pursue you. John narrowed his eyes. The way she said it, Vivi had declared this woman killed Inagram. To be honest, he got why she would think that. No other culprit made any other sense. Yet, if she didn't have orders and wasn't going to fight them, then why kill Inagram to begin with? For the first time her smirk fell as she eyed John. She could see it in his eyes, the way he was connecting the dots. What's that supposed to mean? Demanded Luffy. Just because you say you're not fighting us doesn't mean you won't. John blinked, turning to Luffy with a shocked expression. His smile turned warm. I'm proud of you, he muttered, a manly tear flowing down his face. Now's not the time, yelled Luffy. I'm serious, said Miss Sunday languidly. If you don't believe me, just ask her. Vivi scowled but looked aside. She's not wrong. Say what now? Even John was a bit surprised, tilting his head to listen to Vivi, but never taking his eyes off the mystery woman. Miss Sunday's relationship with Crocodile has always been described as literal. She only follows orders. That's it. The rumor is you want something from him. The smile of Miss Sunday dulled a bit. It was a tiniest of fractions, what one would call a micro-expression. John was by no means an expert on them, always believing the concept to be a bunch of bullshit. However, his hockey, malformed as it was, hinted at something there. What it was, he couldn't rightly guess it, but there was something to do this deal. Rumors are just rumors, smirked the woman, waving it off. Believing in something like that is nonsense. Perhaps, said John, yet you would have us believe that the number 2 in this conspiratorial organization is only slightly loyal to the organization they serve. Forgive me. But that is even more ridiculous. It's easier to believe there is something you want. The real question is how much you want it. She stilled, eyeing the Iceman. For a moment, she had considered Luffy the most dangerous part of this crew. In many ways, he certainly was. But she felt it in her core, this man was dangerous in his own sort of way. He had a brain, and a silver tongue. She smirked a bit, admittedly lost in those strange blue eyes for a moment. You can't give me what I want. Yet, this man can. One that is trying to take over the country. You want something that's in it, don't you? She stilled, she couldn't help but lean forward, her hand resting on her chin, losing herself in this strange conversation. Her own devil fruit's power had bloomed, ready to ensnare the rest of the crew if need be. Vivi was looking between the two, eyeing the strange exchange. Nami was just glaring at him. So what if I do? What if all I want is her father dead? He is a noble after all. Their reputation speaks for themselves. Perhaps, but if you're willing to consort with the likes of a warlord, what does that matter? She actually laughed, her fingers trailing over her mouth. I guess you'll just have to figure that out, though I doubt you'd live long enough to do that, considering your log pose. Nami looked at the direction it had registered. It was the main reason they had remained on the sketchy island to begin with. The island your pose is pointing to is called Little Garden. The smile she bore was sinister, though to John it just felt hollow. Here, she said smiling, a gift. This eternal pose will bring you the direct route straight to Alabasta. Nah, we're good. Her sentence was cut off with a loud crunch as Luffy crushed the log pose midair. The sprinkle of glass wavered the expression of Miss Sunday's surprise. Her eyes slowly getting wider and wider as Luffy locked eyes with her. His face lacked emotion as he glared at her. I'm the one who says where this ship goes. Surprise melted to a casual indifference as she finally stood up. Shame, she muttered. She moved, her hips swaying as she languidly moved to the side of the ship. Well, I've had my fun. Hopefully you survive long enough to meet again. Till next time, Strawhats. She hopped to the edge of the boat, turning to lock eyes with John. She smirked at his piercing expression. The way he seemed to judge her, questioning everything, it spoke to her. Till next time. Still, there was something to him. A memory that she could recall that thrummed in her chest. An uneasiness she couldn't explain. Curiosity, which just drove her interest further as she hopped off the ship. She killed Inagram, muttered Vivi. Why did you do anything? For the same reason you didn't, muttered John. She sputtered as he turned to her, his gaze soft. I understand she may have killed your friend. But truthfully we don't know that. She snuck on here without a problem, disarmed everyone immediately, and was in total control of that conversation from beginning to end. We are very lucky. She was out of our league, for now. John could feel it now more than ever. They were getting stronger every day. The more they pushed themselves, the better they became. Given time, she may not remain the threat that she was. But still nothing, said John sharply. We have to check the ship, now. You thinking she left bombs? Doubtful, muttered the Iceman. But only a fool would ignore the possibility. Usopp, Kaya, you good to help me check the ship? John knelt down as the two nodded. He closed his eyes, letting the ice spread around them. It seeped into the nooks and cranny of the ship, looking for anything that felt odd. He scowled, opening his eyes as the ice evaporated. His hockey was slipping its way out of his control even more now, his agitated state helping him none. Damn it. I can't focus like this. Me and Kaya got this, John, said Usopp holding his bicep. He flexed for good measure as the couple quickly began inspecting their ship. He stood, looking to Luffy. What's our next move, Captain? Still off to Little Garden, if that's even where we're going. You bet, smirked Luffy. Either way we win, right? It's either a place they don't want us to go or it's a place that weird woman can't follow us. Luffy turned to the distance, noting that the woman's ship had already vanished from view. What a weird lady, he muttered, couldn't tell if she was the bad guy or not. Luffy was quiet, keeping it to mostly them. Sanji had already approached Vivi, a tentative touch on her shoulder. How about I make you some tea? Get you a blanket as well. I'd like that. I'll meet you in the kitchen, said Sanji. Just need to get everything. Vivi was slow, obviously sensing something, but she bit her lip and closed the door to the innards of the ship. The moment it clicked, Sanji turned to John. Something up? You've been pretty distant with her? I don't buy her story at all, said John, far too ludicrous. Whatever you guys sense or feel with her is your choice, but I don't trust her. Seriously? Muttered Nami. She's been honest so far, John? You say that because she's your meal ticket, he muttered. That's not true. He stared at her. Okay, not entirely, she muttered, but that's beside the point. What, you're gonna just keep your distance the whole time? Of course not, lass, he said, rubbing the back of his hat-covered head, just that she hasn't earned my trust is all. That's all it means. I'll protect her if need be and we'll get her home. He felt like a jerk now, with the way they all stared at him. But he was honest to himself as well. Her whole story seemed a little too far-fetched to him. There were pieces that didn't fit and concepts about this whole mission that were far too out there for him to rightly believe it was truthful. That and she was a noble. If even half the crap he had heard about world nobles were true, it was best to be careful. A frosty breath escaped his mouth as he sighed in relief. Finally, the feeling in his skull abated. "All right," said John, "I'll be checking bearings for a bit. You making dinner?" "Of course, just give me time for Vivi and John." He turned to his fellow blonde, watching the man light another cigarette. "I get it, I do. I just wanted to make sure we were on the same page." Of course, Sanji. He appreciated the clarification. It was easy to let misunderstandings fester, but it was also difficult to talk about things like opinions and ideas objectively sometimes as well. He respected it more that they'd confront and clarify things like that with him before they festered. Nami scowled. "You know what, I don't want to hear it from you." He stared at her, narrowing his eyes. "What? Vivi's a sweet girl, but I'm sorry she's not like that Miss All Sunday." "What the actual fuck are you talking about, lass?" She frowned a bit at his swearing but pressed forward, her misty black finger poking into his chest painfully for a moment. He wondered what it was, but his concentration broke as she poked him again and again. "I saw the way you two were flirting with each other." "Okay. No, okay. Yes," yelled Nami, "that was gross." "What's gross is that your mind is in the gutter, woman." "My mind? Yes, your mind. Gods. Do I need to bleach your brain or something?" Luffy chuckled as the two got into it. The way they bickered reminding him of Ace and Sabo. The memory of his cherished but past brother made his grin falter a bit, but the memories of them burned brightly in him. Luffy smiled as he made his way to the head of Mary. He smiled, feeling the churning of the waters beneath him as they bobbed through the open sea. His grin widened even further, wondering what else was out there. Chapter end next time on Strawhats. John stared upwards, his jaw fallen clearly to his chest. He was frozen, stupefied, delirious even. Roggy stared at the tiny man, scratching his beard. "Is he alright? He's never seen a giant before," smirked Usopp on his shoulder. "That's all. He'll get over it, right." Later on, Vivi rushed onto the ship, her face flushed as she looked at everyone, her eyes darting between the crew that she was with. "Everyone, we need a doctor. Now, they won't get up."